right, you ready?
Let's do this.
Here we go. Look at that. Happy New Year, everybody. I mean, I guess we're a week in, but it's
I
new
mean,
to
almost 2 weeks.
it's new to us. It's been 2 weeks already. 2024 is 2 weeks in already. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Maker That Money podcast, the podcast where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. I am Pooch of Repkord. With me this morning, my good friend, Mr. Andrew Mayhall of 3D Gloop. Andrew, how are you? Happy New
I'm
Year.
doing, yes, Happy New Year. I'm doing fantastic, full of energy.
How is 2024 treating you so far?
Incredible.
That's incredible is good. We're going to dive in on that and some
hmm
resolutions for our small businesses in the new year. Greetings to everybody that's joining us on YouTube this morning. We do try to do the live stream when we can. I know I've said we aim for Fridays at 9 a.m., but we've been on quite a hiatus based on wacky travel
Just a little
schedules
bit.
at the end of the last year. But we're part of our New Year's resolution is we're diving back in this year, right? We're gonna
Yes.
get people the content they love on small business, all things. What? Oh, not maybe not all things. Small business, maker
Maker
business,
entrepreneurship. Yeah.
entrepreneurship, the things that we love and are passionate about. And
hmm
I want to just give a couple shout outs in the chat. We've got Liz and Mike, Never Let the Machines Win. Grant from 3D Musketeers. Good to see you.
Yep.
Oh, and Mr. Andrew Mayhall is in the chat. I know that guy. Maple Leaf Makers, Ethan. It's so good to see some familiar faces and to be back in it. I hope we're coming through loud and clear. It's been a minute since I had the setup installed here, and
We're a little bit rusty.
we're feeling a little rusty. We're feeling a little rusty. Alex Gibson out of the UK, good to see you. Karen Chow Designs, Happy New Year to you. Fantastic. Look, we didn't even do our tweet. We didn't even let people know. We got to remind people that we're doing this as well. Maybe we'll do
Yeah.
that while we go.
Oh, yeah. The last minute, hey, come join us live.
That's right. That's right. A very important part of the process. And I still, one of my New Year's resolutions and all year resolutions is I refuse to call Twitter X ever. It will always be
Oh,
Twitter.
same.
So
It's
I
always
tweet.
Twitter.
I do not post. I tweet. I will take this to the grave. So we'll do that really quick. While I am doing that, Andrew, I would
Yes.
love it if you would share some of the things that you've been get us caught up on all things Gloop since we kind of last spoke and where we're at and then
Oh,
we'll get into
man.
where we're going.
Yeah, sure. Well, man, it's been quite a minute. I think the last time we did this was what, before Earth? A couple weeks before
I
Earth.
think
Does that sound about
I think
right?
so. We had a live episode at Earth,
At Earth.
which I actually have the recording of that I snipped
Yeah.
out that I'll post to the channel. We've got some major housekeeping to catch up on.
Yeah. Well, let's just pick up from basically where Earth kind of left off. Things have been fantastic. Earth was an amazing time. That was not the last show of the year for myself, but the last show of the year for Gloop. It was a fantastic time. Then we fast forward a little bit, get through those holidays, and then I actually went out of the country for the first time, made it all the way over to the UK, attended Smurf, which was awesome and, a little at first terrifying for myself, but it was great overall. And shoot, man, it's been quite the end of the year.
So let's stay on that for a second. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about you're branching out. I know you'd expressed to me in the past that it's like you
hmm
don't even like you don't like flying in general. Never mind like
Yeah.
leaving your state, leaving the country. So you're really branching out and getting out. And
Yeah.
what is that based on? Like what motivated you to finally do that? Is it just something that you've been resistant to, and you're just like I need to do
Well,
better?
yeah. I mean, I think I'll get into it a little bit more later on, but I mean, just the kind of the high level. This is kind of what I'm carrying through for 2024 is really challenging myself to get outside of my comfort zone, and just make some big changes, personally, in my own life, to take
Okay.
myself hopefully to that next level, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, flying out of the country, I mean, that's been one of the I made it up to Canada. So I guess it's not my first time out of the country, but it was my first time off of North America. There's always been this fear of, what happens if I get stranded somewhere. Like, if I'm on the same continent, I could find my way back home somehow.
Perfect.
But the moment you're off that continent, it becomes a lot harder.
And how did it feel? Just like, was it a completely different world for you? Like, this is
Yeah, it was kind of eerie because I guess over in the UK they do things very close to what we do things over here, but
close but not
it's
quite.
just different enough
Right.
where it throws everything off. You know,
Fair.
so yeah.
Fair. Fair. Well, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
how
really
how about yourself? I
I'm
mean,
really
I
glad
I
you made
know
the trip.
we ended up catching up in Smurf, like, lots of things have happened.
I mean, so many unbelievable things like have happened. It's just felt like a whirlwind. And when I got back, okay, so to catch up really quick, Earth
Mhm.
happened. When was Earth? Give me a month. Yeah, it's such a
Uh,
blur.
it's October, right?
Yeah.
I believe.
That's right. So that's the East
Mhm.
Coast Rep Festival. That's a big 3D printing festival. It'll now be called 3D Printopia on
Mhm.
the East Coast in Bel Air, Maryland. Shout out to those guys.
Yes.
And that was October, and then shortly after. So at one point, I was traveling something like 10 out of 18 weeks over
Yeah.
the late summer and into the fall. So from there, I went on to go to Formnext in Germany, which is just an incredible industrial show. Different crowd, different like caliber of machinery and stuff like that. Such a
Mhm.
cool show. Highly recommended if you ever have a chance. And then I got to spend a little bit of time in the south of Germany with my friend Stefan from CNC Kitchen. We did a bunch of awesome stuff. And then from Frankfurt, I went directly to Prague to the Prusa
Man.
mothership. We recorded some content with the Strange Parts team. I don't know if you saw that tour that he did, but Scotty and his team are so professional. Had such a blast with those guys,
Mhm.
and was so happy to see. Just kind of a different take on the whole experience. If you read through any of that commentary, just seeing like his audience and everybody talk about like, wow, I didn't realize like the scope and the size of the operation, which was the goal in my mind to like really like
Yeah.
share like this is a big company, and the way we're doing exciting things here. And I think people's idea of that hobbyist level 3D printing
Mhm.
and how far it's come, like they don't really realize like the magnitude and scope of it. So that was really cool. And then from there, I had like a week back for Thanksgiving, and then immediately flew back to the UK for Smurf, which I saw you at. That's a
Mhm.
Sanjay Memorial Rep Festival. And then after that, I went to Cambridge. So I got so.
Jeez.
Yeah, Oxford is it's like all the seats of education in
Mhm.
the UK. So I've gotten to spend a little bit of time in Oxford, obviously with the E3D crowd, and we did Smurf, which was just such a great event, good
Mhm.
location,
It was amazing. Mhm.
and it was beautiful seeing like the town all decked out for Christmas. I swear the way they do Christmas in the UK
It's
um,
quite a bit different.
is well, I mean, it is and it isn't, but it's got more that
Yeah.
Dickensian feel, like,
Mhm.
and all the little towns are like so big on decorating, and that happens
Yep.
here as well, but not to the same
Not to the degree.
extent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that was super cool to see. And then yeah, I went over to Cambridge and got to see that for the first time, and visited some folks from Raspberry Pi that are out there. And Tony from Duet lives out there, so we got to meet up with him for a bit, and had a good meal. Did a lot of pubs, a lot of pints,
Yep.
all that
Yep.
stuff, and that was a lot of fun. And then I came home from my long winter's nap, and I think I'm only now coming out of that now. So you guys all get to see me back in mode now. But I slept so much. I had a terrible flu. It wasn't COVID.
Oh,
At least I tested
yes.
multiple times. It wasn't COVID, but over like New Year's, and so I was out like for like a week after that. And
Yeah.
that was a bummer because I had my kids for a good swath of that too, and we didn't get to do a lot of the things that we
Oh,
were supposed to
yeah.
do for vacation. But we'll make it up to them. We got a lot of snow. We got a good dusting this last weekend, and there's another
That's
storm
great.
system coming through. We all got snowshoes for Christmas, which I mean, that sounds silly, but I
Now, are
really
these the
love.
proper snowshoes
Yeah,
where
no,
they're
they're
like
legit
really big?
snowshoes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and poles and like so. There's some
that's
really like
awesome.
the Tahoe National Forest is very close to me,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just these just like gorgeous like frozen rivers and like all these
Mm-hmm.
little trails that are perfect for that. And so we'll do our skiing, snowboarding stuff as well, but like it's a different pace
Awesome.
getting to go out, and it's a little bit easier just throwing some snowshoes in and like going out and seeing some stuff. So that's something I'm excited to get more use out of the Christmas present there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, Pete Pichet, good to see you. Got some new. Jake from State Farm is here. I got to meet him in person. One of my trips was in the Coney Island Maker Fair, and we finally met after
Oh,
interacting
yeah.
for years and years and years. Zombie Hedgehog, I know he's
Mm-hmm.
building a tool changer. I don't know if you've seen this, a Voron tool changer. It's a community
Yeah, I was
project.
catching his streams the other day.
Super
It's
cool.
incredible looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So here's your homework. If you're in the chat, guys, I want you to share what one or two New Year's resolutions that you're working on, whether it's personal or for business. We do talk about small business and stuff here, but we want to know what you guys would like to be doing better this year.
Mm-hmm.
So hit us with it. Nick, good to see you. Look at this, man. We got a
Yeah.
lively crowd this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the agenda for today is pretty light. Like we didn't really do, but it's been a minute since you and I've gotten to
Mm-hmm.
actually sit down and chat too. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad we
Yeah, I
can.
think this is going to be a little like kind of hopefully intimate, kind of close
Yes,
conversation discussion,
yes,
with all of our internet friends with us today.
yeah, yeah,
So let's kind of huddle together and, just talk.
absolutely. I love my fireside chat and stuff like that
Yeah.
too. I guess to finish out really quick. So I talked about all the travel. I took on this.
Hmm.
For some reason, you've been under a rock and haven't been following me. Like I took on a big consulting role with Prusa. So I'm working with Prusa very, very, very closely now, and it's been just like an
Hmm.
amazing experience. I've already gotten to like go connect with just like such incredible
Hmm.
people, and we're already doing stuff. So my official title with them is strategic partnerships and creator relations, which means it's like a dream job, man. I get
Yeah.
to work with all these amazing creators. We get to work on making content, making sure that Prusa gear gets to the people that need it. But beyond that, I'm kind of like I get called in for various things. I was just down in the Bay Area this week, talking to a couple of new let's just say tech companies that we're going to be onboarding for printables, which
That's
is
awesome.
really exciting. Um, that's probably been one of the most I mean, it's hard to say completely because like working with
Hmm.
creators is just and going to events and all that stuff. Like you guys know, I love that stuff. I eat it up, and to have a company like Prusa sponsor, enable that is just incredible.
Yeah.
But on top of that, getting to see the change in mindset around 3D printing from
Hmm.
large companies, whether they're tech or whatever, where they're it's fine. The light bulb's finally starting to go off, Andrew. Where I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of them are like, wait a minute, if
Hmm.
we like release some digital assets and files and stuff like that as a means to supplement product that we're already selling, like that shines a whole new light on what we're doing in a way, and
Yep.
it's not this threat that I think the old
Hmm.
guard felt that
Yep.
if we let our files out there, people are going to steal our products, and it's going to be no,
Yep.
it's quite the opposite actually. We're seeing a
Yeah.
lot of excitement around so like Cooler Master. We did a great engagement with where it's like they did
Hmm.
this new case, and it's got all these great little holes, and you can create your own clips
That's
and
incredible.
mods. And
Hmm.
so whether it's customization, whether it's enhancement, and we've gotten to the point now where so many companies are like reaching out directly to us, like, hey, how do we get involved? What can we do?
Yeah.
What would we do to you? And it's fantastic. Big
Yeah.
Worth Tools and um, a lot of like I said, this is going to be a
That's
big year
incredible.
for seeing that brand section blow out, and I think it's going to make the utility and the experience of 3D
Hmm.
printing better for everybody, because
Oh,
it's
and
it's adding
yeah,
more utility to your machines and ability to customize and like giving you those good practical prints a lot of the
yeah.
time, right?
I think more interestingly is it's allowing these companies to create a narrative of, like future improvement or iterative design, or having the ability to do something that has a utility for the individual, practicality aspect.
Yeah.
It opens up so many new opportunities.
Not just that, but it's creating like a, for lack of a better term, like a pattern recognition for them in a ways
Hmm.
where it's like
Sure.
when they can see the amount
Yeah.
of community engagement they get around a product and the things that people are customizing, like for example, like a gaming mouse, and like the
Hmm.
number of people that are like replacing the scroll wheel because like it wasn't grippy enough for them or whatever,
Yeah.
and now they can start to see like, oh, you know what, like why don't we actually bring this
Hmm.
back into the main thing, and it gives us a product enhancement, it gives us new
Yeah.
ideas for R&D for future products, and like really allows them to see tangibly customer feedback in real time, not just people that
Hmm.
are going to send an email like, oh, I wish the scroll wheel was better. It's like, oh
Yeah, and
no,
that never really makes it to the main, decision makers,
no, and they want it so bad that they made it
Mhm.
themselves, and then I mean, like, it's
Yeah,
such a cool thing. So anyway,
yeah.
I geek out on that stuff. It's been really cool, and I'm really happy to see Prusa, not just Prusa. I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
investment on a lot of platforms out there for sharing of designs. We've talked about this in the past, the new maker
Yep.
economy that we're seeing. If you're a designer, um, moving beyond just like making fun toys and trinkets, although that is big business as well.
Mhm. Yep.
To enable product designers to
Mhm.
monetize their designs in new ways, whether it's selling directly or having a club or something like
Of
that. So
course.
we're just going to
Mhm.
see more and more of that. I think this is just such a rising tide lifts all benchies opportunity for a lot of people. So
The altruism
if
at its
you're
at its core, right?
yeah. If you're looking for
Yeah.
something to encourage your kids doing, like teach them CAD, like let them learn that stuff, because whether or not they
Mhm.
stay with product design or go into architecture or anything like that, is just such an important skill set, I think, going into the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all kind of new things on the Prusa front. And then Repcord continues to exist. Like, we're still working on a V3, although admittedly, it's
Mhm.
slowed down substantially. So that's one of
Sure.
my things for 2024. I'm like, okay, we gotta kind of put the pedal back down and pick
Yeah.
back up on stuff, because we built out a lot of really cool stuff.
Get those
Um,
coals hot again and
get the coals hot again. I've got a number of emails of people like, when's this going to be available again? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do more stuff with CR30? When are you going to do more stuff with the turntable
Yep.
design?
Yep.
It's just, the constant thing was just like, too many ideas, not enough time, right?
Yep.
And I'm gonna
The bane
pause
of
on
the
that.
maker,
The
right?
bane of the bane of the maker of
Yeah.
everything. So I'll pause there, because I can go deep on that. I want
Sure.
you to kick us off with some resolution for 2024.
Sure.
So like we talked about where we came from.
Yeah.
Maybe before that, why don't we start with like, what did we learn in 2023 that like maybe didn't go exactly the way that you had hoped?
Hmm.
You got
Yeah.
you got
No,
something
that's a
there?
that's a good one. Um, Let me think. Yeah, I think I got a couple things. Um, some of the things that I think I need to do better in 2024 is uh, plan a little bit more and react to inputs that are coming in. One of the big challenges that I've run into here at the end of the year and the beginning of this year is, I mean, it's a good problem, but it's still a problem nonetheless. Is explosive growth. We've seen needles moving for months now. Last year was a record year. We did more than 200% growth overall compared to the year prior.
That's amazing.
Um, it was incredible. But towards the end of July, just after open sauce, things started getting to the point where myself, I was working 60, 70 hours a week and just trying to keep up with demand, continue, all the various different development cycles, everything. And I should have started planning for what does success look like sooner,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And now we I'll save some of this stuff for here in a minute. Now we're in a little bit of a pickle, because we have so much demand and I have no way of meeting that capacity.
Mm.
And so that was one of the biggest things that I think, I saw signs, but I was, I guess, a little too conservative, a little too hesitant to actually make a move. And I spent a lot of time, I think, towards the end of 2024, deciding what it was for myself. Like, what did my future success or just plan at 3D Gloop look like?
Mm.
Uh, because there has been some internal problems that I've been struggling with myself here,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I overcome those? So for 2024, I'm doing a lot of some big changes, I would say, in those areas. I mean, the biggest one I think is really working on myself personally, challenging myself a lot more, getting out of my comfort zone. I mentioned earlier, I left North America. It's been one of those things that I've struggled with for a long time. Being, wanting to stay here, not wanting to ever go. My
Yeah.
wife has bugged me for years. you know,
And
um,
I gotta salute you for that, man. Like pushing out of your comfort zone, is such an important thing. I think for all people in all aspects of their life. I think that it
mhm,
makes us realize a lot of times that whatever our resistance to it wasn't often founded in anything,
mhm,
rational or whatever.
yep,
And that embracing that change and getting to see things, experience new things, meet new people, all that stuff is super super
mhm.
valuable. So I applaud you for doing that, and I hope you do more of it. I hope you saw the value from
Oh,
it, and
yes.
and if nothing else, if it changes the pace of things, if it allows you to find a way to maybe take a break. So I know
Mhm.
you got to tack on a little tourism and
Yeah.
vacation into that bit too, which is I think a great benefit
Mhm.
of small business expensing.
Yep.
Like I'm
Yeah.
not advocating for doing anything illegal, but obviously if you're traveling for
You're
business,
getting over somewhere, that's
you're
a business
paying for
expense.
that
Yep.
expense. It is one of the many
Mhm.
benefits of having a small business, allowing you to write off travel. And
Mhm.
hey, while you're there, if you want to take some time to do a little sightseeing
Yeah.
and stuff like that, that's totally reasonable. So
Mhm.
it's good. I think as a small business owner, we don't probably allow ourselves nearly enough time to actually like take a vacation. So if we
Mhm.
can kind of weasel our way into vacations sometimes, I think that's a healthy way to
Oh,
go
yeah.
about it. Good strategy.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Let me share some stuff from the chat here. Karen Chow Designs mentions she's prioritizing health and wellness this year, hoping to be sick less, so she has more time and energy to design more. That hits
That's a great
home.
thing to.
That hits home
Yeah.
with me, and I think it hits home probably with a lot of people.
Mhm.
I gotta tell you, I mean, we've had some conversations offline where I just haven't felt as
Yeah.
healthy as I'd
Mhm.
like, and that's that's a tough it's a tough target to hit because like in a lot of ways like I have prioritized my health and well-being like in terms of like making sure I'm devoting more time to fitness and working
Mhm.
out like and the seeing the benefits of the mental health
Sure.
side of that.
Mhm.
I know we hear it sounds like a cliche, but it's that way for a reason. Like getting your blood pumping and getting more
Mhm.
oxygen to your brain and all that stuff just like changes my overall attitude. Obviously, having less weight to carry and all that stuff, like lots of benefits
Yep.
from that as well. Yes, it's also a time commitment. Yes, it's a lot of work, and a lot of
Mhm.
times in the winter, the last thing I want to do is like get up and go for a run in freezing temperatures or whatever. But
Yep.
we all find our ways. But the prioritizing that
Yes.
that thing. I mean, like they say, if you don't have your health, you don't really have anything.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
as far as like getting sick goes, like I would say last year was actually a really good year. Like I didn't really get sick
Yeah.
like to the point where I was out of command, but I would say the overall like I like there were definitely like weeks where I was just like battling a cold and I was just like working through it, but I wasn't like bedridden the way that
Yeah.
like, I was just like once or twice a year you get a bad flu or something like that. So I guess I
Mhm.
was lucky in that regard, but like I feel like that vim and vigor and pep, like the
Mhm.
overall energy level. And as you get older, it's one of these things that you battle and like, is this the new normal? Or is there
Yeah.
something environmentally going on? Because I've mentioned to you,
Mhm.
like when I'm out and traveling, like I feel fantastic, which makes
Yeah.
me feel like, do I have some environmental issues like around me here where I'm just like,
Yeah.
just feeling lethargic and, or is it psychosomatic? Is it just because I'm
I
out and amongst people?
yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's I think the mind is incredibly powerful, and it can, really help you overcome some of the biggest struggles in your life. So with
Mm,
that said, I think also it can make you feel very particular ways, especially when, you're dealing with a bunch of other stress and other items outside of, necessarily your control.
yeah.
Um, you know.
I feel like
But,
there's just so much we still don't know about like
yeah.
that. Um,
Yeah.
and we're our own guinea pigs in this regard, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
we try again. I'm big on pattern recognition, so I try to look at like what are the consistent inputs and outputs, and how am I feeling.
Yeah.
I'll journal for a bit sometimes just to get an understanding of like what I was doing, how I'm feeling, what
Yeah.
I'm eating. Diet is a big one. That's
Yeah.
again
Oh, yeah.
these are big time sucks though too. It's like I've tried to learn to cook a little bit more because it's like if you want to control the output, you got to
What you're
control the
eating, yeah,
inputs.
exactly. Yeah.
So those aren't necessarily business related, but they are in the sense that if you don't have the energy and the health, like you're not going to be able to operate at
Well,
all anyway, right?
I
So
yeah, I mean, it's like I tell you, being in small business and entrepreneurship, the number one most important thing is you. I mean, you're the keystone of everything. And you have to take care of yourself first.
sure,
Before any other employee, anything else, at the end of the day, it comes down to you, whether that's, in compensation, whether that's in, time commitments or health wise.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Let's look at a couple more resolutions we've got here. So Alex Gibson is saying he needs to create more process documentation.
yes.
That's a big
That's a good
goal,
one.
and hire a member of staff on a short term contract. Good
That'd be
hiring,
awesome.
getting that help you need is always a nice thing to do,
Mhm.
and documentation.
Yeah.
We hate it, but it's so beneficial. And we've talked about this in the past.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
it's tough because it always feels like it's one of the last things that you feel like you have
Mhm.
time to do, right? So like
Yep.
prioritizing things, triaging
Mhm.
things.
Yes.
I think that's something I need better work on, right? Because it's just
Mhm.
so many things on the list, and usually it's just a very like feel like I one of the things I want to work on more
Mhm.
is that triage process. And somebody, this is a I don't know exactly who to attribute this to. It's been said multiple times over, but it
Mhm.
I think it was I think it was Dennis from Thangs last time I met him, and he was quoting somebody else. So I don't think it's his saying, but he
2
was
times
like, he's
removed.
like one of the things that's been affected for him was he said if when you wake up in the morning and you go, what is the one thing? Just start with one thing. What is the one
Mhm.
thing that I need to get done today that is going to make the
Yep.
biggest difference?
Mhm.
Which is like sounds like a platitude, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's super profane, profound, and obvious.
Mhm.
But it's really hard, one, to distill to
It is.
one thing, and two, to decide how much it's gonna matter, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I don't know if that resonates with you guys or not, but I do try to think about that because for a while I was trying to do okay, pick three things, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
list of three. That
Yeah.
feels like an achievable list for the day, and inevitably I would
It
still
never
not
gets
get
done.
all three done because before I knew it, I
Yep.
added 10 other things, and then I forgot to even put those on the list, and then I'm like, wait, what did I even get done today? Um,
Mhm.
I still struggle with that. I still struggle
Yeah.
with that.
I
What's your
mean,
feeling on the one thing?
I think really what it comes down to is it's you're putting energy into categorizing and then, focusing on that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and that allows you to actually get so much more done, because when you're focusing on three different things, you're like, I have these tasks that I need to get done today. It can become hard because you're either switching between things, or the various aspects of your day actually happen. Life happens,
Right.
and then you lose track. You lose track of where you are. One of those things. I mean, it's very similar to some of the things that I say to myself is, what can I get done today? Not tomorrow, not the next day, not a longer overarching thing. What is it that I can get done today that moves that needle? And maybe it's one thing, maybe it's two things. But I sit here every single day. That's how I start my morning.
Mm.
As soon as I wake up,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, what can I get done today?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've only got today. That's the only thing that's guaranteed. I don't have tomorrow guaranteed. I have today right now in this moment.
Yeah.
And that's how I focus. So I mean, it's a little different, but I think it's kind of that same concept, if you
Mm.
will. So I think it just comes down to taking that moment to clear your mind and figure out what it is that is the most important thing to you in that moment that needs to get done.
Mm.
And I think that's incredibly powerful, because we talk about it before, like when we have these hobbies that we are wanting to turn into our jobbies,
Mm-hmm.
we as a maker, as an entrepreneur, need to take time to sit down and think, what is it that we want to get out of this at the
Yeah.
end?
Yeah.
We need to take that time to plan. We need to take that time to understand why we are doing this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
I
so
I think it's the Jurassic Park thing. It's like we get so wrapped up on whether or not we can, we don't really think about whether we should too.
sure.
And I know that sounds silly, but I don't know. There's also
Mhm.
value. Here I am just flip flopping back and forth on my perspective on this, but there's also value. And like some days I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I've been putting off doing whatever, and it's not even like that important in terms of like moving the needle, but it's important to me to like I've been putting this off
Mhm.
for months. I'm just gonna get it done, and there's
But that's the point,
there's
though, is
value in
is
that
that's
too.
why. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, that is what you've determined to be the most important thing. And in many cases, it doesn't have to be the thing that moves the needle in the business.
Hmm.
It moves the needle in your head for your well-being, or for just the sake of clarity for the next, that
Exactly.
you're freeing that up,
Well,
you
yeah,
know.
I was gonna say I call it like removing the log jam sometimes. Like so, for
Mhm.
example, like especially things I build a lot of resistance around that I just really get no enjoyment out of doing. Like
Yeah.
I haven't filed my expense report, from November, and I'm just like, it's funny because it's like that's money that I'm owed, to get reimbursed
Yeah.
for and stuff. But I was like, I'll do it later. I'll do it later or whatever. And like I finally sat down and did it yesterday, and I felt like every time I do this, I go like, why do I make such a big deal out of this? It
It's not nearly
really,
as hard.
it's
Yeah.
not that it's hard. It's
Yeah.
just like I just didn't want to do it, and then it became this
Uh-huh.
bigger and bigger thing. So it's like confronting those things that
Mhm.
create these mental blocks and log jams and stuff that are just they just become this like looming thing after a
Oh,
while.
absolutely. Well,
There's
I mean,
value in
I
just clearing that thing out.
I think there's a really, like, interesting parallel to that, with like something that I'll share here. Is in many cases, like, we as entrepreneurs will deal with these sticky situations where we'll find ourselves in sticky situations, whether it's with a business partner, whether it's with just the general operation of said business. And I know, like, myself, there were many times towards the end of this year where I had found myself constantly putting something off, constantly pushing it
Hmm.
away, because it was
Hmm.
just something that I didn't want to deal with,
Right.
until I eventually it came to a head where I had to make a choice. Like, I waited way too long, and I had to make a choice. I had to address it. And when I actually did, it turned out to be not nearly as bad as I was afraid of. I was able to work through it. I mean, it was still,
And it
it was
rarely
still
is.
painful,
Like we're so
but
good about building it up in our head bigger than
yeah.
the thing it actually is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y- Yeah. So I mean, I think what this goes to say is that whatever it is, maybe it's conflict aversion, whether it's just something you don't like to do. It's just sometimes you have to do it, and as an entrepreneur, we have to put in that hard work, and I think that's what this really is. This is the grind piece that gets us to do the actual fun stuff later on.
Mm.
And don't ignore these things until they become a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's another
Which
big
is
thing.
easy to say in hindsight, right? But
Yes,
yeah.
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 Well, and I mean, I think this is. I mean, for me, I think this is a cool point as well
Keep
to
talking. I
kind
hear
of
you. I want to
transition.
grab something really quick, but I'm listening
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah. I think this is one of those cool times to transition into what I would call kind of my resolutions moving forward this year. Um, some of the biggest things that I am focusing on now is kind of that personal development, challenging myself. I kind of mentioned this earlier, taking myself essentially the next level.
Okay.
5 years ago, when I set out to start Gloop, some of our listeners, here and those watching today will know this wasn't my first rodeo. I had started a previous business, I had built it up, raised decent amount of private equity, venture capital money. Unfortunately, that led to a failure. And for the longest time, I kind of took that personally. And when I started Gloop, I told myself the reason why I'm doing this is to prove to myself that I can do this. I can make a business, it can be successful, it can run. And in 2023, I kind of realized that goal. I said, you know what? We have achieved things that I had never thought that I was actually going to achieve with this.
Mm-hmm.
We have
Mm-hmm.
surpassed so many goals. We had set, a record year at that point, so far. It's like this chapter is closed. I've done it. I've taken it. I've bootstrapped it. I've got it to a point where it's running. It's paying my bills. It has the potential of paying other people's bills.
Mm-hmm.
Like this
Mm-hmm.
is success. Um, and what does the next chapter look like?
Okay.
And that next chapter was, and this is what I'm carrying in, the end of 2023, beginning of 2024 is I want to master the operations of the business. I want to understand all of the various facets. I want to
Mm.
challenge myself in many different ways. Better relationship management, better communication skills. Just being able to push myself well outside my comfort zone to understand how I can continue to build this better.
Mm.
And I think that as like many athletes, they have to constantly challenge themselves. They have to push themselves. Their training, it never gets easier. They always have to increase the load if they want to perform at that excellent level, that exceptional level, to be like
Yeah.
no other athlete.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've got to do. I've
Okay.
kind of, like this is I have got to overcome some of those things that I have purposely held myself back from.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and that's just challenging.
Yeah.
Just challenging oneself, figuring out a way to keep pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone.
Okay, so I want to push you a second on that because
Sure.
we like to talk. So, those that are familiar with, what I don't know if it's art of war stuff, but it's like we've got our strategy and then we got our tactics, right? And
Hmm.
we have the overarching plan,
Yeah.
and then we have like the things that we need to do to implement the plan, right?
Sure.
So
Hmm.
a lot of times, well, I don't know. It's probably different for different people. I love talking strategy. I like talking ideas and all that stuff. But then when we get into the tactics and stuff like that, like
Hmm.
maybe that's more akin to operations. A lot of times, like, okay, what
Sure.
is the operational plan now? That's not my strong suit as much. It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
I can do it, but so
Hmm.
you've talked about if I were to identify what I would say your strategy is, you've identified like the things that you want to work on. You want to push
Hmm.
yourself and
Yeah.
operate at this higher level. What are some of the tactics that you're going to employ to get that done this year?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest thing I've got a trip coming up here. I'm going to be going just in a couple weeks out, to meet some individuals, talk about business relationships, hopefully push myself a little bit further, getting to, befriend these people, to some degree, and kind of, I guess overall increase my my social capital, if that makes sense. The term social capital, being able to rely on other people or ask people, hey, this is what I'm doing, can I get some help here? Or just being able to connect with other individuals. That's kind of the biggest thing, is I think challenging myself to go out, meet people, um and have these deeper conversations, building these relationships up. Other aspects, again, there are many things that I know that I am not the best at, whether it's coming to sales or working on some of these business deals. And the only way you get better is by doing it. Understand, I'm going to fail sometimes. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be some things where I don't do correctly, but that's the only way I can learn. I have to get my hands dirty.
I love this topic so much. I could talk forever about social capital and
Yeah.
getting there. And I've said it before, like putting in FaceTime, like the fact, a lot of respect for the fact that you're like, I'm gonna get on a plane, because a lot of
Hmm.
times, especially in this day and age, it's so easiest for us to just justify, like, well, that
Let's
this
just get
could
on
be,
a phone call. Let's
this
get
could
on a
be an
video
email,
call.
this
Yeah.
could be a Zoom, but like that's so
Hmm.
ordinary and so
Yeah. Hmm.
like, yes, you
Yep.
can communicate that way, but
Hmm.
there is, I think a lot of people miss the nuance, like that face to face time and the energy that you convey, and like even like the that, what do we want to call it, the
Hmm.
after hours, like the
Hmm.
value in, like, hey, you know what, let's meet, let's talk about this, and then let's go get some food, or let's
Exactly.
meet over food or whatever, so that it's like you can actually get to see who I am as a person. I can
Hmm.
experience them, like, oh yeah, just like, because very few people, as silly as this sounds, are
Hmm.
going to be like, I really like hanging out with that dude when they're just like over a Zoom
Yeah.
call. Like, you don't
Yeah.
get that. I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but like I don't have a lot of Zoom calls where I go like, "Oh,
I mean,
that was a lot of fun hanging out with
maybe
that guy."
maybe if you do a weekly call, like some of those Friday calls that happen in the community,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah, yeah.
there's a little bit, it's a little bit more relaxed with other individuals. But no, you're absolutely right. Like when you're talking about business relationships, especially, when there's business relationships imply that there's transactional aspects. And by putting in the FaceTime, you're removing some of those transactional aspects,
Hmm.
and you're more so connecting with the individual behind the business. And
Yes.
that's what I want to do.
Yes.
Because that's been the thing where I understand the transactional side of business. I can talk contracts, I can talk all sorts of things, but I can't talk that social language of the person behind that business yet.
Yeah.
And that's what I need to get better at.
Yeah.
And the only way to do it is to try and fail. I mean, there's going to be some things where I screw up,
Yeah,
but
but I mean,
you know,
people are a lot. I don't know. You can't speak for all
people are
people,
a
but
lot more forgiving.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say they are. I
I'm
mean, it's like,
yeah, I'm
it,
being a lot harsher than I think I need to
yeah,
be.
yeah.
But the concept is that this is my training. This is what I have to do in order to get better. Um, you know.
It's tough because it's like it's repetition is key. It's like fostering those relationships, because it's like you're not gonna
Mhm.
you're not gonna hop on one plane and go have one meeting and all of a sudden it's like your best
Yeah.
buds.
Yep.
And I can hear just mentally a lot of people be like, yeah, sure, Pooch, I'd love to go do that, but like that's expensive. Like I can't just go
Mhm.
fly. I mean, I get that. So
Mhm.
you have to either be in
There's
it
a
for the long
balance.
game. There's a
Mhm.
balance, or
Yeah.
you're gonna have to pick and choose your battles.
Mhm.
But it's so nuanced. It's so valuable, and fostering those relationships and doing that, and it's it's also really tricky needle to thread a lot of the time too,
Mhm.
because like you do develop personal relationships with these people, friendships and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and you start to get into some weird gray areas where it's like, yeah, look, like
Mhm.
we need something for business, like I do want to ask this of you, but at the same time, like I don't want to strain the friendship.
Yeah.
And so there's this kind of give and take to the whole process. It's a dance. I don't know how
Yep.
else to describe it, but it's fascinating.
It is
um
incredibly fascinating, and I mean, I will credit this a lot, of some of the things that I've learned here recently to you and our interactions. I mean, we have, I feel like, have grown to be pretty good friends over
sure.
the past couple of years,
100%.
and it's one of those things where there's still some business side of things that you and I have to do, and then there's that friendship side, and there's this dance, and a lot of this is have been really helpful to me because in many cases, this isn't something that I've really ever experienced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So again, I want to credit you. Like I feel like you have this natural ability. In some cases, I have to mimic it, but the only way to actually develop those abilities, just for anyone, is to actually get out there and try it.
Well,
And get to doing
and to
it.
be fair, it has taken a lifetime of repetition and
Mhm.
practice and stuff like that. I was not always, I was not just like
Sure.
born. I mean, there's some nature and nurture to all things, and by the same measure, like you just have a way more technical prowess on a lot of stuff and way more patience for operations and stuff like that. And so
Mhm.
I think this is why, certain partnerships work well, like when you can find that
Mhm.
synergy and that balance and
Sure.
things. I admire deeply the fact that you recognize things that you could be stronger on. You know your strengths and stuff like that, but you're trying to become a more well-rounded human, which is
Mhm.
always a great thing. I would always advocate for people to do that. But at the same time, those things come at the cost of, it's like, well,
Mhm.
I know you guys are going so gangbusters right now that it has to be painful a lot of times for you to hop on a plane and go spend time doing those things when it's like you are very needed there
Mhm.
too. So you're always like having to like weigh
Yep.
these things, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that hits on an excellent point, because, I could absolutely fall into a role where I could do process development and continue to expand production capabilities and the things that I'm very good at.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are plenty of books out there that say, hey, if those are your strengths, you need to play to those strengths.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also argue that, there are times in which you need to actually challenge yourself if you want to be successful and continue to be successful. I am incredibly grateful for what has happened over the past 5 years at Gloop. I mean, last year was a record year, and what's more incredible is we're somewhat 12 days into this year,
Yeah.
and we've already doubled what we've done for the entire month of January in 2023 in 12 days of
Yeah.
the start of 2024. I mean, to give some perspective just on the amount of growth that we are seeing, and it's because of this community, this amazing community that we're in, but also, I'm not going to discount the hard work that I put in, the numbers of hours, and the only way that we can continue to, you know, grow is if I put in more effort on the areas that I know that we're lacking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And right now, I don't have the luxury of being able to have someone come into those positions. So I got to wear that hat for a little bit. And I think in many cases, it's going to help, because once I do have that capability to bring someone in to wear that hat,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a better appreciation and understanding for what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this is really fascinating to me, because I think that this is a case of what works for the goose. What's good for the
Hmm.
goose is not necessarily good for the gander.
Sure.
And by that I mean, first of all, congrats so much on your explosive growth. It doesn't surprise me
Sure.
in the least. Like, you guys have clearly tipped to the
Hmm.
point where the brand has become mainstream. You've become synonymous with the idea of like 3D print,
Hmm.
adhesion.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there are people still discovering you guys every day, but
Yep. Hmm.
there are fewer and fewer of those, and a lot more people realizing like, oh, I want to use
Yeah.
Gloop instead of CA glue or whatever. That's great. Um, uh, Going through that growth, and watching you coming out of the home office, the garage business, and all of that
Hmm.
stuff, and having been a little bit ahead of that, and like feeling like my personal story, I'm just going to share with you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
I did a little bit last year. Like, I burned out hard on the managing of the people, the manufacturing, and all of that stuff. And I feel like
Mhm.
2024 to me is like, I call it like the rebuilding year in terms of like what I'm focused on. It's
Mhm.
not to say that there wasn't value, and I don't regret any of that
Mhm.
experience. But I realized that I was like burning so much energy, like mentally and physically, on like pushing this stone up the hill. And one, it takes a lot longer
Mhm.
than you, like years and years and years like of the grind. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I've been in it. Repkord's been around since 2016, so we're pushing 8 years now.
Yep.
And having these moments where I'm like, when am I gonna like be done paying my dues?
Mhm.
Um, because in a lot of ways, like I achieved what you were talking about, where it's like, oh, this is sustainable. Like I was paying myself, I was surviving, but I was not thriving because I would
Mhm.
constantly just be taking it and going to the next thing, and I'm like, I'm just tired of feeling strapped all of the time. I'm tired of dealing
Yep.
with, you know, the fear of insurance claims and the liability and the hazard and
Yep.
like the health impacts of,
Yep.
environmental conditions and stuff like that. Um, and we're also lucky enough where it's like I've built the brand to a level and created relationships now where it's like I have better options for manufacturing and the things that I don't love.
Mhm.
It's not to say that it's the right choice. We've
Yep.
talked at length. Like
Mhm.
I've invested in capital expense and like a lot of equipment to like do this production and stuff. And then the flip side of the coin, when you stop doing it and you're relying on other, going to a contract manufacturer model, is you're
Mhm.
completely dependent on those
Yep.
things. Um,
Yeah.
but given the life sucking that it did for me,
Mhm.
like I felt like, well, you know what, I've done this, I saw that I could do it, I want to try to focus on a new chapter. I don't know if it's the
Mhm.
right move, it may not be the right
Mhm.
move, I don't know. And obviously
Yeah.
having the distraction of more consulting work, we've taken on more like print fab
Mhm.
and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
focus
Yeah.
continues to be a struggle for me and something that I know I need to like work more on because I have less people and
Mhm.
more opportunity. Like there's one
Mhm.
thing that's a common thread I think between entrepreneurs is like there's no shortage of ideas and opportunity,
Oh, yes. Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah.
just not getting sucked into that paralysis of analysis of like where's my growth lever, like what am I
Yep.
actually trying to do here, because I'm not doing anything when I'm like trying to juggle 10 balls all at the same time.
Mhm.
And it's never clear what the right answer is, right? We
Yeah.
only have
Yeah.
hindsight to look back. Like I may look back, I'm like, that was a terrible decision. I
Mhm.
was on a great path and I
Mhm.
completely submarined it. I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you've done, with Repcord is phenomenal. And I mean, it's unfortunate that, you had these struggles. And they can happen to any entrepreneur. And I think that you were on the right path. I truly do. And I mean, we've talked at nauseum as well, like
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And I think that it comes down to, being an entrepreneur is where, yes, you're making your own luck in many cases because you keep coming back to the table and you keep flipping the coin. Sometimes you're going to flip a coin where you're going to get tails 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
While it might be rare, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, you just have to weather that storm and continue pushing through that grind,
Yeah.
where you keep flipping that coin. And I think where you ended up now is you have an incredible opportunity ahead of you, with some of the things that you are now working on with Prusa and, your contracts. You're getting introduced to new people. You have this big brand behind you. There are so many other things that you can continue to leverage,
Yeah.
not only for their growth and their benefit, but for also your own personal growth and benefit.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where I kind of realized, it's like, I also need to do my own personal growth and benefit, because while again, I've done Gloop, what comes after Gloop? Because Gloop isn't going to be my lifelong endeavor. It
Hmm.
might, but
Hmm.
it's more than likely never going to be something that lives past, X number of years continuing, because at some point
I don't know.
the market's either going to change, or we're going to be acquired, or something of that nature.
Which is
Um,
totally valid. I mean,
y- you know,
or you brought up
mhm,
at the beginning of the thing, your venture is only failure if you define it as such.
sure. Hmm.
Because and I understand when you were talking about your first thing,
Yeah.
like that probably didn't feel great because one, you got forced out of your own company.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
wasn't like you necessarily had the choice in some regards. But
Hmm.
again, another common thread of entrepreneurialism
Yes.
for a lot of people is that like there, you go through these seasons of ventures and
Hmm.
pivoting and back and forth. The only thing that's constant is change. And sometimes you get an exit. Sometimes you go, you know what? That was good. I learned some stuff. I'm going to focus on this now. And
Yeah.
I think most entrepreneurs don't look at stuff as failure. They just look at it as like,
Hmm.
well, that was that chapter. And now I
Yep.
decided it was a better move to go on to
Absolutely.
this. So I have no doubt that I can find success in any number of the different things that I'm doing. I just know that trying to do them all and sapping
Hmm.
my mental energy and all that stuff hasn't been necessarily beneficial. And again, as you get older, you start to like value more like the notion of, you know, if it doesn't bring you joy, like stop spending time on those things. Um,
Sure.
but you need to see it through the seasons in order to understand what does truly work and not work for you.
Of course.
You
Yeah.
need to go through this explosive growth and the hiring and the getting the place and all of that stuff to evaluate the move.
Hmm.
The advice that I would tend to give to people is like, yes, you have to go out and walk the path and see it. You know, Mike
Hmm.
Mike was saying in the thing, stop thinking and doing, you know, and do
Yep.
it. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, yes, there is some of that, not just blindly. But
Yep.
be okay with the fact that you may not end up where you thought, or you may decide you walk into a cul-de-sac and turn around and go back a different direction, and that's okay.
Hmm.
That is the path sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, Beating yourself up, like, could I have done better if I just stayed the
Sure.
course? If I just
Yeah.
went and got yeah, maybe, but you also could have
Yeah.
made things a lot worse too. You like, we never know.
Yeah, that's the path you didn't take, and it's impossible to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, I think another big thing for me this year is this is the year that Gloop gets its own place. This is the year
that's big.
that
That's a big one. Yeah,
it is. This is the year that we hire employees number 1 through 3. I mean, if not more than that. Like literally right now, I've got a need, at least for one full-time employee today, and I can't make that happen yet because it's still out of the house. But big moves business wise is continuing to grow the business and turn it into that, from that startup to a successful operating company that can stand hopefully on its own, to some degree.
you
It'll
know,
still need some hand holding, but
that is one of the most exciting and terrifying times simultaneously, because like, as
Hmm.
a metric of what we like to look at as success from business, like growth,
Hmm.
hiring, you know, having like, when you're explaining to people your business,
Hmm.
and it sets a context in a different way when it's like, come down to the shop, come down to the facility. So clearly, like, this is not a home business anymore, so there's a sense of
Yeah.
pride in like, we have our space, and then they can see there are other people working on it. It sets a tone and a context of the business,
Hmm.
that creates a lot of pride. And so that's certainly something that I think we glamorize, we aspire toward as entrepreneurs a lot of times.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, there's a ton of solopreneurs out there that are just like, it just
Yeah.
makes the stakes a lot higher. Like, your overhead is going to go up like exponentially
It
as a
is.
result of
Yeah.
that. Like,
Yep.
you realize like how lean you can operate when you are just like one person in your basement or your
Yep.
garage.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what? Like, don't get pulled into the whole glamour aspect. Like, don't hire people because you're just trying to say, I have
Oh,
employees.
of course not.
Don't go like rent a place. Like, we need better metrics and understanding of like when that timing is
Hmm.
appropriate and right, and having that hard conversation if you're prepared for it. Because
Yeah.
I was excited about it, but like, that was also like, it put so much pressure on me. It was just like more mouths to
Hmm.
feed, like more bills to
Yeah.
pay, and all the things that were not bringing me joy.
And I mean, one of the things that, like I kind of alluded to this at the beginning of this conversation is, we've noticed this growth for a while, and we should have reacted to it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
It now again, we're behind schedule. Like, we're having trouble meeting production. We're having trouble
No,
meeting
you very
fulfillment schedules.
clearly need more. Like, if
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. And it was one of those things where, again, I should have I had the inputs coming in, the lights were going off, the buzzers were going off,
yeah,
but I was continuing to kind of ignore it because it was one of those things where I felt that it just wasn't time yet.
right.
And now it's beyond time, and it's trying to catch up. So again, 2024 coming in, is going to be better paying attention to those KPIs.
Yeah.
Those exact metrics that we need to relate to. And I mean, having that first failure under my belt, I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of hiring just to hire, to have a space, and
Yeah.
that glamour, because I
Yeah.
absolutely 100% was caught up in that.
Yeah.
I was young. I was like, hey, this is cool. I just, I was in the news. I had articles done about me, like raising $2.5 million by some 19-year-old kid,
Yeah.
and like growing a team of 17 people. Did I need 17 people? No, like not at all. Did I need the space that we had? No, but it was one of those things where I had learned the hard way
No,
at the end of
they're
it.
vanity metrics a lot of the time. I mean, it's so funny. I mean,
Mhm.
that's such a silly
Yeah.
way to put something that seems so essential to a business. But like, if
Mhm.
you really stop and are honest about it, like
Yeah.
that does seem to be the big downfall, especially of like the venture capital
Mhm.
route and all that stuff, because it's so
Yeah.
easy to spend money that's not yours, and you're all about like the visuals and like
Yep.
telling this story and showing this amazing thing. But like, how
Mhm.
many times have we seen that all come toppling down, right?
So many
So
times.
if there's
Yeah.
one thing that you're poised to do well, and that I would say you have done well, you probably feel like you've held on to staying in the
Yeah.
home business too long.
Yeah.
And again, having hindsight,
Mhm.
there is this. But if I were to pick between the two, you're a way
Mhm.
better off like forcing that issue and staying as long as you possibly can until you absolutely can't anymore. You did a
Mhm.
fantastic job of being realistic about your pricing structure, building in appropriate
Mhm.
margin for resale, setting
Yep.
up systems, trying them, flexing, like doing all these things, getting this
Yep.
process in place so that when you do add
Mhm.
people, you are already set up,
Yep.
for success. I did not. I fumbled my way into this in the sense where it was like I had no idea that I needed to build in like a 30 to
Yeah.
40% margin for resale and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've constantly had to like kind of backtrack into making it a sustainable product, and it was always just kind of flirting with that line in terms of like
Mhm.
the value proposition for what people were wanting to pay.
Mhm.
And it just didn't have the same need and appeal that I think like your product does. So like
Mhm.
I see just so much opportunity, and you have a type of product where it's just like, even if you just decided to stay with PLA Gloop,
Yeah.
you can like,
Yep.
you've got so much scaling and upside to do with that. Never mind all the other products that you can, your
Mhm.
danger is potentially going too wide too
Is
quickly.
is too wide. I mean, well, and what's funny is 2019 was the last year we released a new product.
Mm.
Like that's it. We haven't released any new product. I mean, we have our beaker mugs, but we don't make those. We pay for someone to make
Oh, and
those. Like,
those things are great. In fact, did you see
yeah,
Joe? Joe was just saying he was having
yeah,
some tea from his in the
yeah,
chat. Like, those things
yeah,
are awesome.
yeah.
Um,
They're fantastic. But we
that's
haven't
like
released.
swag. I don't know if that's a
Yeah,
product. Yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
I
But
mean,
people
it's
pay for it.
swag.
Yeah,
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 but we haven't released a new product.
yeah.
It's been mainly focused on updates, process, getting to a point where we have retail packaging. I mean, that took forever.
It
But
always
but
does.
now, that's where hopefully 2024, I want to get the house in order. I want to get everything into a place
The,
where
the
I
physical
have
and
people.
metaphorical house.
Yes,
Yeah,
physical and metaphorical.
yeah.
But get the house in order, and then get back to actually doing some really cool innovation. I mean, some of the things that, as an entrepreneur, that I'm personally terrified about right now is changes in the market, and either new challengers entering the scene,
Mm.
or any number of things. Regulations change, many things can actually disrupt all of this effort that we've been putting
So
in.
many
Um,
gotchas. So many
ex-
gotchas.
yeah, and so I'm hopeful that here soon, once the house is in order, that's when I think fun's going to begin, where we can start rolling out some of the things that we've been working on for a long time, that haven't seen the light of day yet, that we've
Hmm.
talked about, that people might know about, but they're just right there.
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
you know But it's right. You're right. It's important not to go too far, because if we
Oh, it's so
diversify too
easy to get
much,
out over your skis. It's so
yeah.
easy to get out over your skis. Again, and I would argue sometimes because it's a vanity metric, or
Hmm.
we've talked about this one. I mean, this is a massive gotcha, you guys. If you hear nothing else today on the, we'll repeat it over and over again. But
Yeah.
as a maker, we get tired of doing the same thing over
Same
and over
thing.
and over again. And the success metric in business a lot of times is how well can you do the same thing over and over and
Yep.
over and over and over again and scale.
Yep.
It's not to
Hmm.
say that you can't add variety, but it's like we get so caught up in like, oh, but I want to release this product and I want to release, I've got
I
all
want to
these
do the new
ideas and I want to
thing.
do the new
Yeah.
thing and I want to do the new thing, and you will kill yourself. I
Yeah.
know it because I've done it. Like,
Yeah.
it was so hard to call. Like, I ended up like taking like 50% of our catalog offline last year because it's just the juice
Hmm.
wasn't worth the squeeze, or it's like we didn't have the energy to market it properly, like to get it to where it is. Like, that is such a frustrating thing too, because it's like
Hmm.
I still believe in the value of some of this product and I want to see it evolve, and it's a
Yeah.
neat little thing. But like, if you can't do it right, like,
Hmm.
it's just another thing that's just taking your energy and time away.
Hmm.
Um, so, same thing. I mean, I know how tempted you are. It's like to want to release stuff for
So tempted.
nylons, for pro polymers, and
Yep.
like, and you'll get there. Like, I know
Hmm.
you've already, but you have to admit too, like a lot of times that's because it's like you want that new challenge, and it's fun and
Hmm.
it's exciting, and
It
that's
is.
scratching an
That's the whole
itch.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to be in the lab. There's part of me that wants to be in the lab, tinkering and playing. Like, that's the maker in me. That's the engineer in me. And I think it's a perfect, again, tie back. It's like, I know that I still have to continue to develop myself personally, because I have to constantly fight that itch still. I want to scratch it. And
Right.
as a maker, we scratch that itch way too much in many
It was
cases.
way too much, which,
You
but
know,
sometimes you need to. But yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's where that personal development that I think really comes in, is like, again, I might not be the best person for that job in the long run, and I'm okay with that. I accept that, but the only way I can ever develop further is if I'm willing to challenge myself
Hmm.
and stop scratching that itch and
Hmm.
try this other thing,
Hmm.
to get myself to move forward.
Right.
So, yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, not to belabor the point too much, but it's just such a it's probably the number one pitfall for makers, especially. Like, there's
Mhm.
something about that
Yep.
maker mentality,
Mhm.
that if you're really truly being honest about it, it's like, do you have what it takes? And I don't even know if I can answer that for myself sometimes, because it's just like
Yep.
I feel like, I did that, I don't
Yeah.
like it, I'm going back, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but it's an important one. The last point I want to make on this, and I know we're already going
Mhm.
long because we love to just yammer on, but and then I do want to share some tools that I got, as like maybe a last point, and if you have any
Oh, yeah, no,
tools,
sure.
tips, for people to try, that could be a good thing to wrap on. Last point though, on the maker mentality and the thing, we have a tendency, so you're to run into this danger zone of,
Mhm.
and I let me see how I want to phrase this. I shouldn't have to be doing this.
Mhm.
How many
Yep.
times have you been like saying that? And yes, like
Mhm.
sometimes we're lucky enough to be able to hire to that, but like there's
Yep.
a lot of times where I felt where I'm fighting my whole like, well, I've been paying my dues long enough, like I shouldn't have to do this, so I'm gonna like
Mhm. Yep.
hire somebody, and I'm probably not ready to hire, or like I'm not being honest about like, do I actually have enough work for that person, and am I hiring them
Mhm.
because I'm just so like believe that I deserve better when I don't yet, or something like that.
Yep.
Um, I still don't know exactly how to reconcile that, because
Mhm.
you're gonna have to stay a lot longer in doing things that you don't enjoy.
Yep. Mhm.
Um, and that's a tough thing to confront too, as someone who feels
Mhm.
like I should be able to reward myself having done this for 8 years now by
Yeah.
not having to like be the bookkeeper anymore or whatever.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, if that person quits or whatever, it's like you're gonna dive right back in. So
Yep.
how do we reconcile the feeling of,
Mhm.
is it entitlement? Is there some entitlement in that? I don't know.
I mean, perhaps. I mean, it's hard for me to say what that exact feeling is, but
Have you
you know,
had this
one of the
feeling? Do you know what I'm talking about?
oh, I know exactly what you're
Okay.
talking
All
about.
right.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to be the one who's packing and shipping every order every
Right.
single
We have
day.
these little hissy fits like I
You
am
know,
above this.
yeah. I mean, I've shipped 20,000 orders, and every single one of them I've hand packed. Like, up to this point, like
Hmm.
I shouldn't have to be the one doing this, continuing.
Well,
Like
and
I
plenty
know
would
exactly
argue like that's not a good use of time. We get wrapped up in that, right? It's
exactly.
like, oh, it's not a good use of time. And
Hmm.
yes, you're right. Like
Hmm.
eventually I have to get away from it. But like the
Hmm.
when that is,
Yeah,
and
and I
it's
think I think what
not
this
always a
comes
clear
down to
break.
is and this is I feel like this is because I experienced in the previous venture the complete opposite
Mm.
of basically having people do things. This is the filter. This is what separates an a entrepreneur from a good entrepreneur is the ability to continue to weather that and continue to do that specific task until the moment where you can make that transition. I feel like this is massively is that you have to be willing to get your hands dirty
Yep.
and continue to get your hands dirty and understand like hey like this sucks, I hate this is a grind, I don't want to be doing this,
Right.
but that is the part that actually makes you appreciate that job and look for the right person to fill that position when you're able to make that transition
Right.
and then continue to drive that ship forward. I
Right.
mean, I feel like it's you have to weather that storm in order to get strong enough to continue with the other challenges because there are going to be bigger challenges that are coming your way
Yeah.
when you take it to that next level.
Yeah.
Again, maybe I'm wrong for thinking that, but I feel so strongly about this because I know for a fact when I did it the other way
Yeah.
and I just had people do things, I had no idea what was going on. I had people that I was supposedly trusting to do, and perhaps again, I was naive and I got the wrong people,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what the right people were. That's the thing. And had I actually gone through that, I
Right.
think I would have been able to identify who the right people were and
Yeah.
prevent myself from making bigger mistakes than I would have,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is like the when is the right time, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what everybody's like really about. Like
Yeah.
when is the
Win.
right time to hire? And again, like you're constantly confronted with these moments where it's never like this clean line in the sand,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Because we had this moment where it's like I had to hire like 3 people right away. We were gangbusters. We had a ton of orders,
Mhm.
and then because of like the seasonal demand or just like the variability of the whole thing,
Yeah.
then it was like, whoa, what happened to all the orders? Where's that going? And then like we had to
Yeah. And then scale
recorrect,
back.
and that
Mhm.
sucks when you're talking about like hiring and firing of people.
Mhm.
We're actually lucky in the States. I've learned like since working for Prusa, like there's a lot different labor law internationally where like in Czech Republic, you're not allowed to just like let somebody go because there's not enough work for them. Like
Oh,
there's
wow.
very specific protections for actual employees.
I mean, that could be
Um,
a good thing, but also a bad thing. I
Right,
mean,
exactly. But what is good about it
yeah.
is like it makes you make sure that like, are you really truly ready? Because like, if we're not,
Mhm.
we can't just let this person go.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of crappy in our world where it's like we look at people in a disposable manner
Yeah.
like that potentially.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are other ways around it. You can have seasonal
Mhm.
hires and things like that if you're just being upfront and honest about it.
Mhm.
But that is a an ongoing challenge.
Yeah.
And staffing is a yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball to say when the right time is. I mean, right now, like, there's still part of me, there's still a large part of me that feels like it's still not the right time.
Right.
Even though I have a need, I can't be the one continually, fulfilling orders. And in many cases, thankfully, my wife helps out a lot, and is doing some of these jobs. But at the end of the day, I know that I need to be doing other things now,
Yep.
like for instance, going and meeting people face to face, challenging myself to, be better at these other aspects of the business.
Yep.
So I think it comes down to once you hit that appropriate level of growth in the business where you could start to afford it, you continue to weather that storm for a little bit longer,
Yep.
and you then have to start thinking and figuring out what is the next move. What is it that you want out of the business? I mentioned in the beginning of this, it's now, for me, what I want out of this is to grow personally, to continue to develop this so that if I ever go on to the next thing, I have, again, a better understanding of the whole working of everything,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that I'm building my own reputation with individuals.
Yeah.
I'm building my own toolbox for understanding, how to interact with people, how to build these relationships, these lasting relationships. They're more than just a transactional,
Yeah. Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
So, you know,
It's I don't know. It's funny because as an outsider looking in more, it's very clear to me. It's like, yeah, you're ready. I would say if I'm trying to help define some metrics for people, if you're asking the question if it's time to hire, like one,
mhm,
you really need to be, well, we've said this before. You need to have at least seen your business through a few seasons in terms of like
mhm,
getting some sales data, some
yep,
trend. Now, that
mhm,
said, that's really tough when you're going through explosive growth because you have no idea where on the plot exactly you
exactly,
are. Um,
yeah,
but the other side of that is like I do believe that you have to assume the success to some extent.
mhm,
Like you don't want to
yep,
make decision making on fear that like,
yep.
well, there could be a downturn or there could be like, because those are all things that are out of your control.
We had a
And
whole episode on planning for your own success.
right, we
Yeah,
did, and it's an
mhm,
important one.
yep,
Um, And the other thing is like you never want to get to a point where you're having to find things for people to do, which is just
mhm,
miserable on multiple fronts. One
yeah.
because it just constantly reminds you that it's like if I'm having to find stuff for this person to do, like then maybe I wasn't really
Then I
truly
wasn't
ready to
ready.
have them.
Mhm,
Now, again, benefit of hindsight, like it could have been great. Like they were going good for 9 months, or like there can be things that affect your
mhm.
trajectory that are outside of the you know
There are going to be ebbs and flows in
controls.
every business.
Right.
Mhm,
And sometimes you realistically may have to lay them off, or you may have to assign them something else, or you may have to cut their hours, or
mhm.
whatever. But
Yeah.
try to be realistic over the course of the year. And the other metric is financial. You
Mhm,
need to have enough cash in the bank and say like, okay, I want to hire this person. Ideally, I would look at it and say like, do I have enough to pay this person for a year,
mhm.
or at least I don't know, maybe a year you might think is a lot, maybe six
Yeah.
months,
Maybe 6 months. What yeah. However,
whatever you think a
accustomed you are
reasonable
to
shot.
running. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
I don't know what would you look at in terms of like what their salary, and not just their
Sure.
salary, you got to include like cuz you're going to
Yeah,
have to start paying taxes on their payroll
yep.
and all sorts of
Exactly.
things that you
Yeah.
haven't had to pay yet.
You pay them if their salary is $2,000 a month, you're realistically paying $2,600 a month.
Yes, you
It's
are.
an extra $600 you got to account for, or something like that. Um so yeah, I mean,
Also,
it
your
really,
your electric bill is going to be more expensive, your insurance is going to
yeah,
be more expensive. You need to factor in all of those things.
all of those things.
Yep.
I mean, I think it comes down to how accustomed you are to running your business. Of how close to the wire you go. I mean, I will say, speaking from experience, when we started back in 2018, we had basically no money at all. And it was, in many cases, we were negative. We were operating negatively, like
Yeah.
whether it was credit cards, whether it was investments from family members, whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And that carried over for a long time, until eventually, everything was paid off. We were actually had some cash in the bank, but in many cases, we might have had $5,000 in savings. Like, think about that. Like, at any point, something can happen. The whole thing can come crashing down.
Yeah.
We were really operating off of the rolling revenue. Now things have changed. Thankfully, last year, record year, we were able to, build up some of the coffers. We have some cash. We have the ability to, really start planning. Um, I don't want to operate that close to the wire again,
Right.
ever again.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think something that I'm looking at right now is making for sure that I have at least 6 months of runway to cover number one first, myself.
Yep. I think
Because if
it's
I
great
can't do
advice.
this,
Yep.
nothing continues.
Well,
And then from
and
there,
and
number two, number
you
three.
can't overstate
Mhm.
how much that mentally wears on you when you start running too close to the wire in terms of like, because we
Hmm.
talk about paying yourself first, but at the end of the day, like once you start to have other people and all that stuff, you're gonna
Yeah,
want to hold on to them as long as you can, because the
exactly.
feeling of going
Hmm.
backwards is terrible.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I mean, yeah, and that's one of those things that I actually found out too was having raised that venture route. I mean, there were times where we ran out of money because we didn't get the next tranche of the investment in, and what did I do? I gave my salary up. I gave
yep,
all of my up to the employees, and what I found was that led to so much additional pressure, and it was nearly impossible for me to drag myself into that office and work and continue to do the things because I wasn't taking care of myself.
yep,
And I think obviously I don't ever want to get into a position here at Gloop where I would have to lay someone off if I made the wrong choice. But I think now since I view things a little differently, it would happen. I
yeah,
mean, if I see that writing on the wall, it probably would happen because and maybe that's selfish of me, but having lived that of going through and giving up my salary, giving up all of my income, and continuing to keep the employees paid. I mean, while it's noble, the entire thing fell apart very quickly
yeah.
because you know I wasn't able to keep doing it. And if I'm the guy who's leading the charge, who is honestly acting as a leader to guide all of these other people, if I'm not in the right state of mind,
Yeah.
then all of the work isn't gonna happen in the right way.
Yeah, the ship
So,
needs a captain, man. I mean, we've
mhm,
said this before. It's like you're not doing anybody
yeah,
any favors if you submarine the whole thing.
hmm,
Mitch has a comment question in the chat. If you're running so tight financially for so long, is it worth pursuing, or should you change your business? I mean, yeah, that's the crux of it, right? I think the
yeah,
trouble is the fallacy that we've run into uh, business people is we tend to hold on too long, because there's always this like, well, if I can just get through the lean month, if I can just do this, if I can just get a bridge loan, you don't
hmm,
know, because there've been multiple times like, the only way to fail is to give up, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so there are so many ways to keep like kicking that
hmm.
can down the road. So,
Mitch, I'll
so it's
say
hard to
I'll
say.
say this. I mean, you know, there were plenty of times where we were running so close to the wire that I thought it didn't make sense to continue. But I think what it comes down to is you need to be real with yourself, what it is that you want out of this. I've said it before, I'll keep saying it. Sit down and determine what is success for you. Don't change it. Once you have it, that's it. That's your goal. That's what you're working for. And yes, you might be running so close to that wire for 3, 4 years, maybe even 10 years. I mean, but if it's you are seeing some little bit of progress where you are either developing as a person, you're getting closer to that, you're making these connections, whatever it might be that your goal is, then I think it's totally worthwhile doing. Because if it's a lifestyle where you want to be, into woodworking or whatever it might be, it kind of morphs into that. Now, that's not to say that, you're not going to have these moments where you're going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And honestly, sit down and address that. Because if it is time for you to say, I don't want to do this anymore, that's okay.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
take it and say, I have achieved my success. Because I think as entrepreneurs, we don't take time to reflect and say, I've achieved my success, because it's so hard because there's no actual goal or target. It's constantly moving, you know?
it is, and the likeliness, like, I don't know, I think for a lot of
Mhm,
people it's like, well, I've invested so much time and money and energy in this, it's like I need an exit, I want to sell this
mhm,
thing so that I can cash out or whatever. Like, just letting
mhm.
it die doesn't sound, that's failure, that's giving
I
up,
I
right? And
mhm,
so we want to hold on to it so we can like kind of get the value we know we've put. And sometimes you're wrong. You're like, maybe I
mhm.
probably, I dumped
Yeah,
$500,000 of my money over,
mhm,
the last so many years into this, and I may
mhm.
never see that again. That's a terrible pill to potentially swallow, and I hope
Yeah,
that that's not the case, but it's certainly a
yeah.
possibility.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. And I think it really comes back to understanding what it is that you want out of it, and then also honestly addressing those feelings, because in many cases as us entrepreneurs, we don't really address them.
Hmm.
Not to the degree at which we should be.
All right.
Hopefully that helps. I don't know.
Yeah. That's. I mean, so much more. We could stay on that forever. It's such a
Yeah.
fascinating topic. But let's call it there for that. Just to wrap things up today, I wanna show two things that I'm trying for 2024 in terms of tools. Well, it's really one thing. And I had to go to the other room to grab it because my kids love it so much too. But I got a
Oh boy.
Pomodoro timer. I don't know if you're familiar with these guys.
I think I've seen them, but I'm not familiar with that brand. I know that there's a couple of them.
I mean, there's a number of different. I mean, the Pomodoro just means tomato in Italian, and so it's like a tomato timer or whatever for when you're making your pasta sauce.
Okay.
So initially, it was just something that set like a defined time, like 15 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. So this particular one I got off Amazon for, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks, something like that. And it just, when you rotate it and set it on the table, it sets a timer for specific amounts.
Or 15 minutes. Okay.
What I love about this is I am such a like squirrel-minded individual, as many are, you know, undiagnosed ADHD, call it whatever you want. That putting guardrails on how much time I'm going to spend focusing on something actually like works really well for me.
That's fantastic.
As long as my kids haven't stolen my Pomodoro timer and taken it to go play.
I was gonna say, now it's time to get 3 of them.
Well, so I did. I got a second one. This is the one that I feel like we've seen so commonly, and like it's a fun one to play with. It's magnetic and it goes on the fridge, and you can
and so you just
set the time by rotating it and then pushing it and throwing it on the floor like that. Now I need a new one. Whichever one you get, like, see if that's if maybe that's a value to you guys as well too. I find that putting some guardrails on how long you're going to spend on something can really help your productivity. And this isn't a new concept. This has been around for quite a while. But it's something I've been exploring and had some success too. So I wanted to share it.
That's fantastic. I mean, well, you know, I think what we talked about earlier, you know, you shared with your conversation with Dennis was, you know, having that one thing. You know, in many cases, that I think these timers help you focus on that important task.
Right. I need that one thing that only takes 15 minutes, and then I have the rest of the day to do whatever I want.
There you go. I mean, if all of our days were that easy, man.
I did my one thing, and it only took 15 minutes.
All I want to do is just send that one email and then be done.
Oh, if only. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, one thing that has helped me in the past, and I'll probably get back to it, is, you know, as I built an Excel spreadsheet, you know, a while back, that I would kind of like put some tasks in, and then actually Andrew, the other Andrew, you know, 3D Gloop, helped, you know, kind of build that up a little bit, you know, and turn that into kind of a task tracker. And those are like where you put the bigger tasks that you need, and you can kind of prioritize, and you just check them off the list. You know, whether it be sticky notes or, you know, an Excel's timer or Trello or whatever it might be.
God, I love Trello.
You know,
I need to use Trello
I mean,
more.
what I find though is like with these other ones is I have to find the time to actually put the stuff in there. Like it's like, oh,
and then you're like dedicating time to like the time tracking itself, and you're like,
exactly,
just adding more work.
Yeah, I mean, I love them. They're fantastic. And you know, I know that again, working on myself this year, I'm going to get back into those things where I'm spending more, you know, more time doing those, you know, so I can track and be better suited.
Yeah. Awesome. Any tools, tips, anything else you want to share before we close out?
No, I mean, I
we covered a lot of ground as always. Yeah.
I mean, thank you everyone for sticking with us. I think we've gone over a lot, but you know,
sometimes we get in a flow. We get in our little flow state and we go. And you know what? It takes as long as it takes, guys. Stop complaining. We did a solid 90 today, but it's been a while, well, and I'm really glad we did, because I always come out of these feeling like this energy, and I'm like, I'm like, oh, I got to do more of this, because like I love it.
I mean, we had some amazing engagement. You know, I mean, sorry if we didn't get to your specific comments, you know, in the chat, but thank you. Like, you know, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, Ethan, by the way, I loved your comment on moving your zero. I'm sorry, we didn't get to pull it all out, but you guys are fantastic at participating. And we appreciate you guys being here and chiming in and stuff, and we look forward to doing more soon. Just a little housekeeping. I'm gonna be up in the Seattle area next week. If any
Mhm.
of you happen to be up there and want to connect, maybe we'll see what we do. I know I've got my usual suspects I'll be spending some time with, but I'm looking forward to getting back up to the
Awesome.
Pacific Northwest in the dead of winter. Supposed to get some snow. We'll see how that goes. And it sounds like maybe I may come down and join you in LA the week after for a little
Yeah.
bit as well too. So we're always looking to connect with the community,
Mhm.
be out there and do stuff like that. So as far as the next one goes, one of the resolutions I've had, and I've yet to like really hone in on exactly with Andrew, but like trying to keep things sustainable because I know we throttle up and back and then we don't have things, and then
Mhm.
I do some remote episodes that I need to get posted and stuff like that. So figuring out what is good and healthy and sustainable going forward. I don't know if it's going to be every 2 weeks, a month. I don't think we're going to do weekly, just given how much my
Mhm.
travel schedule has changed.
Yep.
But maybe we'll do some more face to faces as Andrew gets on planes more,
Yep.
and we'll try to keep sticking with these and keep you guys posted. If you're not subscribed to the Maker That Money Twitter feed, we do our announcements there for now.
Mhm.
But we will keep you guys posted on the next ones, and you never know. Just but stay tuned in, and we appreciate you guys joining us when
Mhm.
you can. And if you can't, again, catch us on all the podcasting platforms. I will post back to those things, hopefully within a reasonable period of time after the episode. But you can always go to the YouTube channel and find it there fresh as well. Anyway,
Awesome.
I wish a happy Friday and a happy weekend to all of you and a happy 2024. I hope you guys are off to a good start and have some good goals in mind and are working toward your resolutions. And we will catch you on the next Maker That Money very soon. Until then, bye bye, everybody.
See ya.